Hello, this is Malin, and this is going to be actually putting the sword together. I did a video previously about how to measure and cut your foam, and now we're going to do the actual assembling of the weapon. Okay, so items that you'll need: knife, the flat foam, the flat of the sword foam, the striking layer foam for the box layer. This is the striking layers, and adhesive. It would also be good to a piece of scrap foam of either 4-pound, or it can also be blue foam. Preferably you want like gym mat or something for that, and strapping tape. Okay, this is why. This is not required. It is very good to do this particular step first. So you take your core, you take the scrap piece of foam, and you line it up and indent really hard to mark where you need to cut the foam. So that I have a circle, so I need to cut about that circle out. It's okay to have a little left over, but as close to that as you can get, the better. Okay. So from there, this is the piece that we need. We're going to take our strapping tape. Notice I have mine kind of in multiple sections here. This is for the striking layers, which we'll do later on. And this is for reinforcement and what I'm about to do now. I have a thinner side and a thicker side. The thicker side is going to be the one that I'm doing for this right now. Okay. So take out a piece, and you can use a knife or scissors. I'll do one with a knife and then do one with scissors. Cut it. Now cut out a new piece. Oh, and if you mess up something when you're building a sword, there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally okay. Especially when you have a lot of that material. For example, this tape. If you mess up something on the tape, it's totally fine. There's a lot of tape in these rolls. It's nothing to worry about. So I have one strip here. That strip's not good. I have one strip here. Cut out a second strip. And then with that tape that's still on the roll, you want to make sure to always fold it down and leave a tab. Okay, if you don't and you try to get it, that's what will result in having this happen. You can do this on purpose, but if you don't do it on purpose sometimes, if you don't leave that tag in there, you go to pull it up, it'll split your tape. So now you have these two pieces of strapping tape cut. I actually get this piece now. Okay. You take them and you form them into an X. And you take that X and put it on the top of that piece of foam that you just cut out. And then you take that piece of foam and you line it up over the tip, and then really hard pull it down and press it. Make sure to squeeze it down all the way around. Now you notice this is pulling off to the side, so I'm going to pull on the shear side and pull it back a little bit to help it recenter, and then grab, pull down really tight, and then just make sure I get all of it there nice and stuck. It will try to undo itself because this is under a lot of pressure. Now you take more of your tape, and you wrap it around. And that will keep the pieces from trying to come up and off. Wrap that really tightly. If it's a little off center, that's okay. This will not affect the strength of the build. So the interesting thing about sword building, sometimes small details matter, a lot of the times they don't. So if you're building your weapons, especially at the beginning, don't get too caught up on very specific small details. Because like how much that's leaning over, it's not going to affect all that much. Ideally, if you had the sword not already like set up to have a flat side and striking side, you would just make this your flat and strike. You make this your striking side. And if it was a single-edged weapon, this would be the main side you'd have for your striking. And these would be your flats. Okay, that's covering that side of the tip is a little bit more. That tip will last a little bit longer on that side. But now, as you've seen, I have that wraparound tape. Take the knife underneath that wraparound, press, and spin the core. You want to get all those edges of that tape cut off from earlier. Let me pull those off. Ah, yes. So here, it would also be good to have sanding paper. If you do not have sandpaper, that is okay, because you can actually use your knife, if it's serrated, as some kind of sanding paper. You just take it and drag it on the top a little bit. Pulling it towards you, we'll rough it up. Without actually cutting it. And this is really important to do, because adhesive does not like slick, shiny things. If this is not roughed up, and you go to put glue on it or whatever, over time your box will detach from the tip of the core, and the entire box will come off the core. And you don't want that, right? It's less of a problem with carpet tape, but even with carpet tape, if this is not sanded down in some way, shape, or form to make it rough, if it's smooth, it can still come off, and you don't want that. It's like one of the worst things to happen to your swords. Okay, from here, and I'll take our flat pieces of foam. You can either DAP or, in my case, carpet tape. The sides. If you use DAP, you want to be sure to wait 10 seconds between applying the DAP and then applying it to your core. Also, when dapping these, you want to dap this and the core, and let them both sit for 10 minutes. Because the way that DAP works is it's not necessarily a glue in of itself. It works by sticking to itself. So if you use just DAP, it will not stick to what you're trying to stick it to, because it's wanting to try to stick to its own self. So you always need to DAP both items that you plan on putting together. So here, I have the tape on. I'm going to take my knife, hold the non-sharp edge down at an angle, and pull on my foam. This is to make sure that my carpet tape gets really good adherence on that bit of foam. With carpet tape, you do not need to put tape on both sides of the weapon, or both parts of the weapon. You only need tape on the part that you're going to be putting onto the core. Okay. So we take that, peel off the protector, take the flat of the weapon, and run it up the side. So, how I recommend to do this: start at the tip. You always want to start at the tip, because if you start at the bottom and you go up, you can have a lot off the edge and you need to cut it off. When you go to build the weapon, though, it could result in having a shorter blade than you want. But if you do it this way here, from tip down, you can really adjust both sides as you want. I don't know how to explain. So when you're doing this here part, though, you want to take your core, lay it on the ground, and then run the foam down. What this will do is keep it from going all wavy. So I'll do one where I don't do that really quick. Also note, these are my first videos, and I'm definitely going to be remaking these as I get used to doing these videos, just so that I can, you know, make them better. Because sometimes I'll say some derpy stuff or say things in derpy ways. So, you know, let's see how it goes, though. Over here, I'll cut that. Okay. And again, flat edge, and pull. Just make sure it gets really good and stuck. A lot of people want to dog on carpet tape. I've used carpet tape for a very long time. And while it does have its weaknesses, it definitely has its strengths. One of the strengths is that when your striking layer goes out, if you're using a 4-pound or gym mat box layer, it will not die nearly as fast as the blue foam striking layer will. Or, whatever striking layer you have. Any kind of 2-pound, the 4-pound or gym mat would generally outlast the striking layers of your weapons. So here I'm going to apply one without doing that thing on the floor, and I'll show you why you do it, or on the surface, and I'll show you why you do it against the surface this time. So if you look at it, particularly right here near the bottom, like right in this here area, it kind of goes down, and then it goes off, and then it goes back, and it's kind of twisted right there. That twisting, if it twists one way or the other, will really affect the weapon in a negative way. It can eventually roll over and cause more damage to your flat pieces of foam than you need. And that sounds weird. Oh, it's only on the flats, how is that getting damaged at all? Well, when you're striking people, all the foam gets compressed, even on the flats. Over time, the foam on the flats will go out. Not in a particularly dangerous way, but it will stop holding up as well, and that can make your sword hit a little harder than it used to, even if you put on new striking layers. That's something you gotta pay attention to. Okay, so we're here. Now I take a striking layer, do the same thing. Notice on my tape, I don't have that, I've lost the cut point. And I'm going to recut it. You don't have to do it to your carpet tape. I like to do it just so that makes this part faster. I generally cut really deep into these. Really, really deep. So I have to do it very often. I normally try to catch it before I lose my line, but sometimes you can't, and that's okay. Okay, so now this is going to fit this layer. I build a lot, so I do a lot of things that you won't have to do. But if you also want to build a lot of weapons, some of the things you'll see me doing will be helpful to you. For example, this way I did with my carpet tape. Advantages of carpet tape. It is much faster to build weapons with. Instead of having to wait 10 minutes every time you dap something, or the 24 hours after the weapon's together, you can just put the tape on and put the weapon together and just use it. With that, you have to wait 24 hours after it's all the way built. Sometimes you actually want to wait until like 48 hours to actually use the thing. Carpet tape, you can build it and use it in the same day. Another advantage is when you try to take DAP off, it will often rip up the foam that's adhered to. Take off carpet tape though, there's a lot less of that being a problem. So for example, if you have a dapped on routed box layer, and you don't want to have to redo that dapping on the box layer or make a new box layer, if you just want to reuse that layer, use carpet tape between the box layer and the striking surface layer, because you can pull the carpet tape right off and not damage the box underneath. I have a sword where the box has lasted me 3 reblades, and I've not had to replace that box in 5 years. Why? Because I carpet tape on my striking surfaces. It is quite good. Okay. Here we are. I'm quite scatterbrained. I lose things all the time. Even things right in front of me. And that's okay. Anyone can build a weapon. All it takes is time, patience, and an understanding of how to do it. And that's my goal with these. These aren't going to be the best of the best or anything, but these are videos in a perspective that most people don't actually do. As far as I know of, in my 8 years of sport, and many years of scrolling the YouTubes of trying to find videos like this, I have not found a video that showed you how to build a weapon from your perspective. you always see it from the perspective of, like, standing across the table from them. And while that's not bad, and, you know, it's definitely a good way to learn, you know, watching those videos, how I learned, I feel that having a different perspective will be helpful in a different way. Because you can see things in a way that you weren't able to before. And that's the point of these videos. Also, to impart what little bit of knowledge I have that I've gained outside of those videos from building weapons for 5 years now. 6 years maybe, depending on how long you want to count it. Oh, when you're doing this your part, you want to try to line up one side to be like the perfect side, and one side to be the not perfect side. Just like here. Also notice I'm going through with my fingers like this here. And ideally, you know, hold this piece up and away, really far away. Grab the sides, hold the finger down, and run these here down the sides. If you're using DAP, if this is dapped and this is dapped, and they touch, you can't really do much to get out of that. You can put a little bit of DAP on those to make them pull off, but these here might come apart, because DAP makes DAP wet again. But it makes DAP wet again. And then you also have to wait another, 10 minutes to get tacky again. So you're going to hold this here way far and away, finger down, pushing down, these guiding it along on the flats. And that will keep it from the DAP curling down and touching itself down here, and making it a problem. I have had to remake a sword because I had that happen one time. And when DAP gets stuck to itself and it's brand new and you go to take it off, it'll actually pull patches of the DAP off of itself, off the core. And you don't want that. Okay, so now here, we're at the tip. Now notice that mine is it's not level. And it's because I'm not, this isn't going to be an actual sword that I'm going to be using or anything. This is specifically for tutorial purposes. Here, we have this cap. The way that I get this cap is it is the exact same size as my box layer on the striking surface side. I take it, I lay it on top, like that, and then when I have it where I think it's good, I make a line, come over the other side, make a line, and then go on top and cut straight down. I'm not going to cut this one here, though. This is actually going to be part of the striking layer on this sword. Okay. This helps to keep your sword tip closer to the actual weapon, which is good, because the further the foam comes off of the tip, the more damage the tip will receive as you hit people with it. It's like if you have a really long, thin stick, right? If it's really long and you smack it really hard, there's a good chance you can break a piece of it off, right? Well, if it's really small, you can smack that same stick and you might not break it, because of how far away it is from the point you're trying to break it at. And foam works in basically the same way. Sure, that's all taped. And then we take this here, pop it on top, right? That's how that looks. Okay. Then we take our striking layer pieces, the actual, striking layer bits now, and we go from the tip, finger pushing down, thumb and finger guiding, and going on down. Do the same thing to this side. Going on down. Okay. Then, we want to take, there's two ways to go about this. You can get a rounded tipped sword by taking this and cutting a bevel into on both sides to match this piece. And then, when you wrap your blue foam around, I'm going to grab that, I have it right here. When you wrap your striking surface around, I keep saying blue foam, your striking layer. When you wrap the second striking layer around, it'll make your tip rounded. In Bellegarth, a sword with a certain circumference of a tip, or a certain degree of angle or whatever on the rounded part of it, will mean that your sword can be technically a little thinner, and still pass. In Bellegarth, your sword tip it cannot go through a 2.5-inch hole, whether or not it's a green. If you're in Dagger here, a non-green weapon can't pass through a 2-inch hole, and a green weapon can't go through a 2.5-inch hole. So if you go with the stabbing tip, you have to go up 1/2 inch on your check key. Bellegarth, they do that there for every weapon. None of them can go through a 2.5-inch hole, unless it has that certain specific bend to it. Then you test it against a 2-inch key, and it's fine. From here, you just, cut out another layer, put more tape on or more DAP on, and go up and over. And you'll have a side that's like really nice and splat, and a side that's not so much. If you have something like a bandsaw or something, and you're very, very good at guiding it, you can guide this through on the bandsaw and cut off the imperfect side and make it nice and flat if you want to. However, that is not required. When you throw a cover on this thing, it's still going to look good. People aren't going to be able to see the like divots like this. Very, like, I would have to be picking up the weapon and looking at it really, like, good to be able to notice a little divot in the side right there. Like, especially on the field. You're just looking at someone, no one's going to see it. Doesn't matter. It's nice to have things that look really good. At the same time, like, especially if it's your first sword build, just build. You don't have to worry about how it looks. Looks doesn't mean safe. If it looks good, cool. If it doesn't, that's also fine. We don't pass weapons because of the way they look. Unless they definitely look like they're gonna fail, then we make sure we test those ones really good and make sure that they're definitely okay. But these, it's fine. No worries. Okay. So, you can use carbon tape or DAP. I'll have a video soon of how to do heat welding, which is where you take a hot air gun or heat gun and you physically weld the foam together with heat. I'll explain the advantage of this in that video. With this is how to do the actual building of the sword blade.